you doing out there, guitar heroes? All right, well, today's lesson is kind of on an alternative chord progression, the G, C, and D, which should be real familiar to you right now. We've got a little alternative method of playing that's very, very common in a lot of songs. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start with a G chord, but instead of our normal third finger on the E string, we're going to put the third finger on the B string and the little finger back here. And then when we go to the C chord, we're just going to move these two fingers down one string each. And it's actually called a C9. And as far as the G goes, it can be called a G. I've seen it the G a lot. Most of the time it's just called a plain G, even though you think, well, I'm adding this note. Instead of that, I'm adding this note. So instead of having a B in there, you'd have a B, C, it'd be a D. I'm going to add that D string in there. So that's what makes that sound so great. And then for the D chord, it's basically going to be one you're familiar with already. I'm just going to take my first finger and I'm going to move it over here to where it normally is in making a D chord, except I'm going to leave my little finger and this finger in that spot. And if you remember right, that's called a D-Sus2. And just in case you're wondering, the sus is for suspended. So if we're going to make a normal D, right, and we put the little finger down, that's what we get, right? That's what we get. So in this case, I mean, obviously this chord progression doesn't work. It's not a direct substitute. You can't use it all the time, but you can use it on some songs, and certainly this alternative C and D really, you know, like I said, it's quite common. So let's zoom in and take a real close look. Okay, so you can see, you know, just a normal fingers, just start your G like you normally would, right? Index finger here on the A string at the second fret, then you put your second finger over here on the third fret of the big E, and then instead of going to the G or the E string with your third finger, go to the B string instead, and then bring that pinky right up behind it. And you get that versus this. And that's the difference for adding in that, or substituting the D string versus the B. That's basically the change that we're making. So when we want to make a C, all we have to do is take these two fingers here. I'm not moving these fingers here at all. I'm just going to move them down one string. So now I'm on the D string, D at the second, and then third on the A string. And of course in this one, you're not going to want to hit this big E, so you want to have your thumb over here to mute that, unless you're good enough not to hit that string. And that's your C, and that is a C9. Or, okay, let's put it this way. It's commonly called a C9. Now, C can be substituted. I mean, if there's a song and this is really tough for you, and sometimes this gets a little bit tough, when you're moving in and out of this, then certainly a C is okay, but this gives you a little bit of an enhanced sound, let's say. A nice alternative. And then the last chord in the three chord progression is D, and like I said, you basically just you bring this finger, the first finger, back to where it would normally be when you play a D, except I'm not changing these two fingers. In fact, remember the little one is the one that comes down when you do that D-Sus2. And now in this case, of course, we don't want to hit the A string here either. We just want to, like we normally do with the D, is basically the first four strings. So if I put this finger back down and formed a normal D, and I have this down, then you can see, well, geez, I've seen that before. So remember, when you put the little finger down, D-Sus2, S-U-S is kind of short for suspended. And then D-Sus2 is when you bring up the middle finger. So the common progression is D. So a common chord that you probably have already seen, if not in one of my lessons, probably somewhere else. So it really makes a nice progression, and you'll see songs that basically that's the way they're played, and then sometimes you can substitute that too. But there's a lot of them that are played this way. So there you go, a nice substitution for a normal G-C-D progression, and one to put in your toolbox, so to speak, to use when you need it. And there's times when it just kind of works, and there's other times when it might not work. But it does give you a little bit more flexibility, and then this is kind of the part of the basis for the. Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. So you got that down too. All right, take it easy out there and keep on the strum.